on the whole, this group needs some degree of winter protection. Some need more, some need less. It kind of depends on the individual rose. The first one is Angel Kisses. This is one of the ones that you can see down at the bottom. It says Dave Bang. Dave Bang is the creator of those gorgeous miniature roses that we've had the last couple of years. He also produces some other varieties as well. I think actually what happens is when a miniature rose gets too big to be called miniature, then it's a mini flora. When it's too big to be called a mini flora, it becomes a floribunda. I think that's kind of how this works. But at any rate, this is one of his. This is a floribunda. It has a low creeping habit, so that's quite nice if you want something in the front of your garden space. One of the things that's really nice about having, say, a garden that's maybe 4 feet wide is that you can have several different plants that are kind of behind one another, graduating in size. So this would be a good one for the front. It has 4 to 5 inch in diameter ruffled blooms that vary from pastel apricot to a soft yellow to pink. He says it has super long live blossoms in the vase or in the garden. And as you can see, it's got a really nice exhibition form with 26 to 40 petals. It stands between 1 to 2 feet tall and 1 to 2 feet wide. So it's going to be small and in the front of something. And like all of his things, it's very disease resistant. The zoning is what we think it is. You'll find for a lot of his, I don't have zone information because in order to get that, you have to trial them around the country in various zones, and then you can put down how well they work. And he doesn't do a lot of that. But I think this has been out in commerce a little bit, so it's been long enough that it has some zonage on it. But I really think it's beautiful with the way that the petals are kind of coral on the outside and then white on the inside. It kind of looks like it's lit from inside. The next one is Black Magic. This is a hybrid tea. You'll notice that it says Zone 7B. For us, that just means you need to be sure that you have given it some good winter protection and plant it very deep because otherwise it won't survive the winter. But it's so beautiful, it might not matter. It produces very large blossoms with 26 to 40 petals, and again, that exhibition form, which is so perfect if you're going to be showing your roses. It's a deep red, and the blooms are mostly borne on solitary canes, which is typical of hybrid teas. That way you'll have a long stalk with a beautiful flower on the top. It has a subtle sweet fragrance, and it is disease resistant. It's quite tall, 5.5 to 7 feet. So if you have Mr. Lincoln, it'll be about the same size as Mr. Lincoln is. And it has an ARS rating of 8.1, which means that it's very good, very well rated by all the people that have had it. It's been in commerce for a while, so people have had a chance to evaluate it. Bliss Parfumée is a hybrid tea. It's one of the ones that we've gotten from Cordis in Germany. About 30 or 40 years ago, Cordis made an executive decision that they were going to not spray their roses anymore. And so ever since then, roses that come through them have been evaluated time and time again to see how well they hold up for disease resistance. And they are among the most disease resistant roses that you're going to find. The thing that I find about them is that the first year, don't expect a lot. They kind of sit there and look at you, and then you think, well, gee, this wasn't quite what I thought. The next year is when they really begin to show them what they can do, and they do. This one has large pink bend blooms with 26 to 40 petals, and it's very fragrant. Apricot, quince, lots of fruity fragrance in there, and like all Cordis things, extremely disease resistant. It's a nice medium-sized bush, 3 to 4 feet tall, and it has an ARS rating of 8.4. So that tells you how well it is rated by people that grow it. And it's a zone 5 rose, so a little winter protection, but not a great deal. I find the Cordis roses can hold up pretty well in our winters, but giving them something is a good idea. Earth Angel is another one of theirs. We had this a few years ago, and it sold out immediately because it produces these gorgeous flowers. They're cupped, but then inside they have about 100 petals. So it makes for a very interesting display in the garden. It has a very strong fragrance, and it's very cold hardy and disease resistant. It's a tall one, so it's a bit taller than the last one. So you could put the one we showed before, Bliss Parfumée, in the middle, and this one behind it. And you'd have two flowers that are very similar in color, but very different in height. This one has an ARS rating of 8.2, and it is rated zone 5. If you have any questions, stop me. This one is one that's been around for quite a long time. It's called Fragrant Cloud. That's not the best picture of it. It's kind of it's not quite electric orange, but it has an electric quality to it. And it is, like its name, extremely fragrant. I think it came out in about, I don't know, 1960 maybe. I think I put it in my garden the first time in about 1977. So it had been out for quite a while by then. Since it's nice to have some of the older roses occasionally, and this particular one, because it's very disease resistant, is a really good choice. Some of the older ones are not as disease resistant as we would like, and as much as we have kind of come to expect. But this one is a good one for that. It's also a medium-sized rose, 2 to 4 feet tall, and has a very good ARS rating of 8.1. Because of its shape and its color, it's a great one for exhibition. This is Garden Party, a hybrid tea with 4 to 5 inch blooms that are ivory to white and then blushed on the outside with pink. Very healthy and robust. It repeats in flushes, meaning you'll get a bouquet and then it'll rest a while and you'll get a bouquet. So it makes for a very lovely garden display. It has moderate fragrance and is very disease resistant. It's quite tall, 5 to 6 feet tall and about 3 to 4 feet wide. So if you've got a piece of garden that needs something in it and you don't want to have to put in lots of little stuff, something like this might be quite the thing. Back in the days when there used to be the AARS Awards, which stood for All American
Rose Selection.
Thank you, Rose Selection. Roses were submitted by growers, and then they were evaluated by a nationwide group of people. They grow them in their gardens without knowing what it was, because they were just given it by number. And then they would evaluate it and say, what you think. Well, eventually out of this, the ones that are the best are designated AARS winners. And Garden Party is one of those. They don't do that rating anymore, but it's kind of nice to know that something that you've got in your garden is something that was rated one of the best roses of the years that it came out. It has an ARS rating of 7.9, and it is a zone 5 rose. Gold Medal is one of our 2 Grandifloras. It's a beautiful plant. It has these yellow golden orbs that come out. It says suffused with orange. I didn't see orange in mine. I had one for several years until I think it succumbed to winter or something. But it produces long stems with very few thorns, which is very nice. You can put it someplace where you're going to go buy it and not be caught on it every minute. It has a very strong fragrance, and it produces beautiful flowers that are winners on the exhibition table every time. It's not terribly wide. It's only about 30 inches tall. Well, that's not right. Apparently, 30 inches to 6 feet. That's kind of a big range. I think you can say, in our climate, it might get to 4 feet. Go up farther north and it'll only be 3 feet. Go to California and it's 6 feet. That's probably why it's got a range like that. Because the one that I had, I think, was around maybe 4 feet tall. And then it's about 3 feet wide, so again, it will fill in a nice space. It has an ARS rating of 8.3, and it's a zone 5 rose. It's been grown by a number of people in our rose club over the years, and I know everybody who's had it has said they really loved it. In fact, this is the one I won Queen of the Show with. My one queen. This is another Dave Bang rose. This is a floribunda called Hi Honey. It's a 4-inch diameter bloom, and you can see it's got that high center, which makes it perfect for exhibition. Light honey-colored blooms with darker centers. I don't really see the darker center in that picture, but I'll take his word for it. 26 to 40 petals, so you know it's going to have a lot of substance to it. It's going to hold up well in the vase or in the garden. And it has very good black spot and rust resistance, and it's free of powdery mildew. I don't know that we have much problem with powdery mildew around here, but he tends to rate a lot of his based on black spot, rust, and powdery mildew. So evidently, where he grows things in California, he must have issues, particularly with powdery mildew. It produces continuous bloom throughout the season. This is one of the ones that's only been out for a year or two, so we don't have an ARS rating for it, nor do we have a zone rating. But it's a miniature, or a floribunda rather, and you can assume it's going to need some winter protection no matter what. Laos Deo is another floribunda produced by Dave Bang. He loves these striped ones, and sometimes in the pictures they look a little garish, but when you see them in person, they're just spectacular. It's quite amazing. We had quite a few striped ones over the last couple of years, and when people saw what they looked like, they couldn't get enough of them. This one has continuous bloom throughout the season, and it has that high-centered spiral form that's good for exhibition. 3-inch blooms, so it's not real big, but it looks like it would be very interesting as kind of a little spot somewhere if you have, like perhaps something like surrounding a statue or something where you want something that will really attract the eye. This might be just the thing. Moonlight Magic is a hybrid tea. This is a medium-sized, high-centered lavender blooms with 20 to 40 petals. It has excellent disease resistance and blooms, again, in flushes, meaning like a bouquet at a time. It has a mild citrus fragrance, and it's medium-sized, 3 to 5 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. It's a zone 6 rose, so it will require some winter protection. Paradise is one that's been around for a long time, but it's so striking. The colors of it are just amazing. It says lavender bloom splash with magenta. That really doesn't describe it. It's much more vibrant than that. It has a moderate rose fragrance and is disease resistant. You'll notice it doesn't say very. Well, this is one of the older roses, and so compared to newer roses, it is not as disease resistant as they are. But it still has a fair amount of resistance built into it, which is good for all of us. It's a medium-sized bush, 3 to 4 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide, and it has an ARS rating of 7.7 and is a zone 5 rose. So, assuming that it has a few little problems because it is an older bush, it's still, the color is so fabulous that it really is something that you have to see to really enjoy. This is one that I love. This is South Africa. It is a Grandiflora. I have one in my garden right now. It's a large, semi-double, deep golden yellow. Now, I would say South Africa has a little more orange to it than, I think it was Gold Medal that said it was suffused with orange. Well, I didn't see that in my Gold Medal, but I definitely see a little bit of orange in the South Africa. Not a lot, just enough to kind of warm that yellow up a little more. It is a Cornish rose, so it is very disease resistant, it is very fragrant, and it's a medium size. The place I have it, it really doesn't get much attention. It's kind of sandwiched between a couple of roses and a big boxwood bush. And so sometimes, well, this year I had a weed issue, and I had weeds that literally were just overwhelming it, and it would still come up through and send a nice little bloom every now and then. So I thought that was pretty darn fine. Stiletto is one that I have not heard of before, and I think this is kind of interesting. It says it is double magenta. On there it looks red. On my computer screen it does look much more magenta. But it's got large exhibition style blooms with 30 to 35 petals, dark green glossy foliage. When you see glossy foliage, you know that it's going to have some disease resistance to it, because that gloss tends to cause predators and disease to kind of slide off, which is always very nice. It has a strong fruit and rose fragrance, and it's 5 feet tall by 3 feet wide. The reason why the ARS rating is in parentheses is because it's only been on the market a few years, and so this is what its preliminary rating is, but they haven't had enough response yet to give it a complete one. And it's zone 5 through 9. And then we have Sweet Mademoiselle, a hybrid tea with large, fully double blooms that have 35 petals, peachy pink to apricot color. And this is one that will vary with the temperatures. So as it gets warmer, then the flower is lighter in color. And when it gets cooler, then the color deepens, which I think is kind of interesting, because then you wind up with essentially different colored blooms on the same bush. It has excellent disease resistance and dark green glossy foliage, a strong sweet fragrance, and it's 4 to 5 feet tall. It has an ARS rating of 8.3 and it is a zone 5 rose. Okay. This is one of the climbers. This is Sally Holmes. A couple of years ago, this won the World Federation's Rose of the Year Award, or whatever they call it. Because it really produces all kinds of these little clusters of flowers, and because it's a climber, it can get to 12 feet tall. It's a zone 5, so it will require some winter protection, but it blooms on new wood. So that means that you could cut it down considerably, and it will send up new wood and bloom for you the following year, which is always kind of an issue when you're dealing with climbers. If you have to protect the entire cane and up to 12 feet, that can get kind of tiresome. So with something like this that blooms on new wood, you could cut back on the canes to a point where you feel comfortable, protecting it, and then it should do well. It is nearly thornless and has an ARS rating of 8.8, which tells you that it is really, really well received. And the flowers are borne in large clusters, which you can see on the picture. We also have 2 tree roses this year, patio trees, meaning they're about 3 feet tall. The first one is Iceberg. Iceberg is a rose that you could almost call it the ubiquitous rose. In places where, for example, in Santa Barbara, where my mother and father lived, you see iceberg everywhere, because it survives in heat, it survives in cool temperatures. It produces masses and masses of beautiful white flowers. You can see it's got an ARS rating of 8.4. And it is very, very disease resistant. It's one that you can put in a place if you want to really light up a corner. You put a white rose in there, and boy, everything around it starts to hum. It has large 3-inch blooms with 10 to 12 petals, so it's not, each bloom doesn't have a great deal of substance to it, but it produces so many that that's not a problem. And it's about 4 feet tall. At the bottom it says, all tree roses need winter protection in Minnesota. That's because tree roses have 2 bud unions. They have one that connects the rootstock to the long shaft, which becomes the tree. And then they have a second one at the top where the flowering head is attached to that shaft. So you actually have 3 different roses joined together. And because you've got those 2 bud unions, you have to give it winter protection. That can be taking, if you have it potted, you can take it into an unheated garage or shed, put it up off the floor and away from doors, and kind of do what you can to keep it from getting too dried out with wind. If you have it planted in the ground, you do the old Minnesota tip and tip it over and bury the whole thing. Or if it's in a pot, you can take it out of the pot and bury the whole thing in a hole in the ground. So there are a couple of ways you can deal with this depending on what you have in the way of space. But you do need to do that. And this is our other one, Intrigue. This is another rose that's been around a long time, but it has absolutely gorgeous color to it. A strong, sweet citrus fragrance. It's very disease resistant. And it's got this plum purple color that is just amazing. So beautiful. It's zone 7, or a rating 7.3, and a zone 5, but of course being a rose tree, the zonage doesn't really matter. Well, this year we have some David Austin roses. We don't have a lot, but considering the fact we have not been able to get them for about the last 3 years, we're considering this a huge triumph. The first one we have is Bosco Bell. And we had this a couple of years ago, and it sold out very quickly. It produces very pretty flowers which are upward facing. Sometimes Austin roses tend to look down at the ground, depending on what the variety is. And so it's always nice to find one that looks up at you. And Bosco Bell is one of those. It has a medium strong myrrh fragrance, which I don't actually know what myrrh smells like, but I'm sure it's quite lovely. I suspect if you ever have smelled My Sin perfume, I think that's myrrh. It's kind of musky and heavy. It has excellent disease resistance and continuous bloom. It's kind of a square bush. It's about 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and is rated at 7.5. I put in the information about why it was named because I think it's so interesting. Being that we're not British, oftentimes we don't have a clue why a particular rose has been named for something or someone. And something like Bosco Bell, I mean, it sounds like something between chocolate syrup and something else. But no, it's not. It's named for Bosco Bell House, where Charles II hid during the English Civil War before he escaped to France. The next one is Crown Princess Margarita. It's a 4.5-inch bloom, so it's kind of the width of your hand. Apricot orange, rosette-shaped flowers with 120 petals per bloom. And they aren't kidding. And when they open, they're so fully bloomed, so fully petaled that you can't usually see the center. Occasionally, if they completely open, you will see what's called the old-fashioned flower face, where it's quartered. If you divided it in quarters going down through that little center pip, each quarter would be identical, which makes it kind of interesting. And this one is a prolific bloomer. Because it has arching growth, it can be used as a small climber, or you can cut it down and use it as a shrub or a tall shrub if you don't want to cut it down. 5 to 6 feet tall and 5 feet wide. This is one, if you look at the David Austin catalog sometime, or some of the pictures of Austin's gardens, they have this arched as an arch in the garden, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm sort of thinking about maybe trying that this year. So you've got your plants, in your garden, and then you've got a couple of Princess Margarita, or there's another one that would also work, going up like this, and then you join them in the middle. So you have an arch arching over your garden bed, which I think is kind of interesting, you know. It's another way to grow them, so you get to see a lot of flowers, because of course, anything that is a climbing type rose, if it's horizontal to some degree, it will produce more flowers, because it's the horizontal where you see all the flowers. So when it's arched like that, that does a lot of interesting things. Oh, what happened to Gentle Hermione? She was there before. Oh well. Gentle Hermione is a very light pink shrub. I wonder why, oh, this is weird. Oh well. A very strong old rose fragrance. Let's see. Another one that's kind of 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide. Excellent disease resistance. And Hermione is the faithful wife of Leontes, the king of Sicily in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. So, and I don't know why. Oh well. Gertrude Jekyll, this is a very famous one. This is one of David Austin's first really, really well-known roses. It produces lots of those pink flowers and is a very vigorous plant, 5 feet tall. Again, it can be used as a short climber if you want. It has 80 petals per bloom, and it's known to be very hardy and disease resistant. Let's see, it's zone 5, and it's named for the famous garden designer and author of garden books, Gertrude Jekyll. You see this a lot in roses in Europe, in gardens in Europe, because it is so multi-climate friendly. So I think it would work very nicely here. Graham Thomas is the other one that can be used as a climber. It can grow from 5 to 10 feet tall, depending on where you have it. And it will grow even in partial shade, which shows you that it's a very vigorous plant. It produces these beautiful, bright yellow flowers, and lots of them, with 80 petals per bloom, and a light tea fragrance. It's not one of the most fragrant ones that Austin produces, but it's a beautiful flower. It's good for partial shade and has an ARS rating of 8.2, so that tells you it's well regarded everywhere. It blooms in flushes, so if you have it on an arch, you will have times when your arch is completely green and other times when your arch is completely yellow. So that'd be interesting. And this is named for Graham Stuart Thomas, the British horticulturalist, and he chose this particular rose himself as the one to be named after him. And this is our last Austin rose, Litchfield Angel. We had this a couple of years ago, but we were lucky to be able to get it or anything else. I have one in my garden, and I can't say that it's done a lot yet. I think it needs a little more time to really get itself acclimated. But I think once it gets going, it should be interesting. I don't think it will ever be 5 feet tall. It just looks to me like it's going to remain at about the 3-foot level. It has a light clove fragrance and 110 petals per bloom. So it's a very full blossom. 5 feet tall, well, maybe, and zone 5. And that is our selection of Austin roses. And finally, we have our miniature and mini flora roses. These are all Dave Bang creations, and they're all just amazing. I won't bother with zoning because none of them have them, and there isn't necessarily a lot of height information as well. A lot of that depends on where you plant it in your garden. The first one here is Elegance, which is beautiful, deep red, 2.5 to 3 inch blooms, spiral, high-centered bloom form. He likes to do that so that you can use them in exhibitions. It can get some powdery mildew, but as I say, I don't think most of us have a problem with powdery mildew, so it's probably not a problem. And it has blue-green foliage, which is kind of interesting as a contrast with that deep, deep red. Hawaiian Sunset. He identifies this as a mini spray. I'm not quite sure. I would say it's a miniature that forms sprays, but you know. At any rate, I think the colors are just gorgeous, and it certainly does look like a Hawaiian sunset. 2.5-inch blooms are yellow with coral red edges, and high-centered double blooms have 17 to 25 petals per bloom. Good rust and black spot resistance, which is what we need. Powdery mildew free, which is fine. Semi-glossy dark green foliage and continuous bloom throughout the season. That's one of the things with his roses I've found that if you can once situate them so that they're happy, they will just start blooming and they'll just bloom and bloom and bloom. This one's called He Is Risen. Yellow blooms with orange stripes and flecks. High-centered spiral, and the orange color intensifies when the weather is cooler. It's got a good black spot and rust resistance and 26 to 40 petals per bloom. It's a mini, so it's probably going to be 12 inches, 14 inches, something like that. Heroic Love is a mini flora, which means it's going to be a bit taller. It has 3-inch rose pink blooms with white stripes, flecks, streaks, 26 to 40 petals on exhibition form blooms, and continuous blooms throughout the season. Semi-glossy dark green foliage and good disease resistance. This one strikes me as one that will be really quite wonderful. You know, if you put iceberg and then put this in front of it, you'd really have some wonderful color contrast, and then have maybe some blue lupins or something around it, or some lavender. Cool. Marshmallow bubblegum. I know Mark was able to get this one for himself last year. They didn't have enough for us to buy for everybody else. So he suggested that this would be a good one to have because the color is just gorgeous. It's a mini flora, so it's about probably 18, 24 inches tall. And it has 3-inch blooms with pink with cream streaks, stripes, and flecks. It has the classic hybrid tea form with 26 to 40 petals, and it can be grown as a shrub. So that tells you it's going to be quite bushy, and it'll fill in spaces. You won't have a lot of stems just sort of sticking up. So that'll be nice. Powdery mildew free and good resistance to rust and black spot. Powdered keg is one we tried to get last year. We ordered it, but it never came. So we're trying again this year. It's a thornless mini spray that has this dark purple. You know, if you've had some of the other dark purple flowers like ebb tide or purple tiger, you know, this would be that same sort of vibrant purple color. It's because it's a mini, it'll be fairly small, you know, probably 12 to 14 inches tall. The flowers are quite small, 2 inches, but you get lots of them. And it suggests that you plant it in partial shade for best color. I suspect that the purples are one of those colors, sort of like blue, that if you put it in too much sun, it just sort of fades out, and you wind up with lavender and lilac. And if that's not what you wanted, then that'd be too bad. It has excellent disease resistance and glossy medium green foliage. Warms my heart. Now, this picture is not very good. On my computer, you can see a lot more definition of the petals. But the 2-inch blooms are orange with a yellow reverse. Well, I would not say, based on the picture that I have on my computer, I would say that it is fire engine orange. It's got a lot of red in that orange, not so much yellow. So if you wanted something that was more on the red end of things, this would be it. 2-inch blooms, very double high-centered flowers, continuous blooms throughout the season, semi-glossy medium green foliage, and powdery mildew free and good resistance to black spot. And that is our collection. I thought I'd just show you the website. If it doesn't look right, don't worry about it. On my desktop computer, it looks just fine, and for some reason, it was not acting right on this computer when I was at home, so, but you'll still be able to basically see it. Okay, and everything should be up and running now. Okay, click on the plant sale, and then you scroll down, and here are the various. So click on this first one. This is what I mean. On my computer, desktop computer, those pictures are in there. And trying to get them in was just a pain today. So I finally gave up. But what you can do is that you click on one, and it will take you to the page about that particular rose. So you'll get a chance to learn a little bit more and evaluate again whether it's one that you want. So we have that for each of our categories of roses. And then at the bottom it says, click here for the electronic store. So when you do that, come on. Oh, come on. There. Okay. It says if you want to look at everything, you have to click on Shop All. And then over here are the different categories, but you can actually just kind of scroll through it. We have our membership, individual membership here, so you can pay your dues that way. We have the 25-pound Bob's mix. Then we have all the other roses and the dual membership, the 10-pound Bob's mix, and the 50-pound Bob's mix. So everything that you can order is available on that website. You can pay with, I believe, PayPal, or you can use a credit card, and you can order multiple times. That's one of the things that's kind of nice, you know. Well, I think I'll just order these two. So I put in my order, and then a couple of days from now, I'm thinking, well, that's all pink. Maybe I want some. Oh, I want intrigue. So I put that in. The computer will put all of your orders together. So you don't have to worry about, you know, what did I send, what did I buy. All of your orders will be compiled so that it's very easy to deal with it that way. The one thing to remember, whatever date is printed on there, it'll say something like, you know, pickup is next Saturday. It is not next Saturday. Pickup are the 2 days that are everywhere in our information. The last Saturday in April, the 8th, 26th, and I think it's 26th, and then the first Saturday in May, which is May 5th or 6th. So those are the 2 pickup days. No other dates apply. You know, since the pickups are at my house, I occasionally will find people wandering around my backyard. Is this the place I got? Well, yes, but not today. If you remember last year, we were not able to order the cocoa bean mulch because there was a fire in the cocoa bean factory and it burnt down and there were no cocoa beans available to buy. So we bought the pine bark mulch from Bachman's, which I have discovered is a really good thing to put down under your wheels when you're stuck on ice. It works really, really well for that. Anyway, so I'm glad I didn't use it all up on the garden. But we are hoping we'll have cocoa bean mulch again this year. We don't yet know. The place where we get it from, Flugel Elevator, it's the same place that mixes our Bob's mix for us. And they don't yet know, you know, Norma called them a couple months ago, actually, and they said, oh, we won't know until January. Well, January is a big month. And so hopefully by the time we get around to calling them back, we'll find out that, yes, there'll be cocoa beans available. But there may not be, and we don't know what the price will be. You know, given the fact that they're having to rebuild their factory, it may not be $6 a bag anymore. If it's wildly expensive, we just won't offer it. We decided not to offer any companion plants this year. This there's still a possibility, you know, that if people say, oh, I really want to be able to listen, well, we might be able to do something. But on the whole, they didn't sell all that well, and they were kind of a pain to take care of because they were, you know, in those little 6-packs and 4-packs, which dry out while you watch. And so, you know, it was not a great seller. And we're trying, our goal this year is to sell everything we have and have nothing left over. That maybe is a lofty goal, but we feel that it's a good one. We've tried to always have interesting choices, and I think Norma's done a great job, and Mark with the miniatures. I think they've really come up with some good choices for us all, and I'm looking forward to this. Now the website is up, so you can order through the electronic store, or you can write out one of the paper forms and mail that with your check. The information about that is on the back side, so you know, if you decide to print it out yourself, be sure that you print the back side too, because that's where you'll have the information about where to send things. What if you ordered from the electronic store last year, one of the things that's nice about that is that it tells you when you first go in there, you know, oh, I'm interested in Sweet Mademoiselle. Oh, there's only 4 left. So you buy one. Now there's only 3 left. It tells you how many are available. In the case of the Austins, there's 5 of each to start with. So there aren't going to be a whole lot after the first couple of days, I'm afraid. We have a few more of the other ones coming, but still, it does help you with keeping track of things because it automatically tells you. Now, one of the things that's interesting, on the David Bang roses, well, because of the way they ship them, they box them together in 4s. And so, yeah, and it's quite interesting. But anyway, so we've ordered everything in groups of 4 for the David Bang miniatures and the mini floors. Because of the way that the computer program works, every single one of them already says low stock. Because if it's below 5, it automatically says low stock. That doesn't mean that there aren't any left, but it does mean that there are 4 or less available. And that's just the way it is. It's one of the quirks. We used to order them in 5s, and when we were talking about this year what we wanted to do, it occurred to, I don't know, probably Mark, that if they box them up in 4s, it would make more sense to order 4. so you don't have 4 and then another one over here. So, and that would be fewer boxes for me to deal with because, boy, there's a lot of cardboard involved. So.
Is there a fee for using the online store?
A key?
Fee.
A fee. Oh, there is a small fee, yes. I think it's listed as tax or something. It's not really tax. To be able to use the computer software that runs the store, they charge us a small amount, like 2 or 3%, something like that. And so that's automatically added on, and we just call it tax because it's easier to, you know, people understand tax. We don't charge tax, we pay the tax ourselves as a club. But it's just easier to call it tax. Other questions, concerns? Well, that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming.